Thank you to everyone for joining us today. We know that we just announced this training late on Friday, and thank you for joining us with such short notice. While we wish we could have given folks more time, just like you all, we have to apply for waivers to USDA, and we were waiting our approval before we could release this information. So we are happy to be here with you today. And as Nigel said, we will post the recording of this session to our website for those who weren't able to make it. I also want to wish everyone a happy Strawberry and Salad Greens Day as the lunch kind of hours are closing out. I hope everyone was able to head down and enjoy some local strawberries and greens with their students today. All right, Nigel, I'm ready for the next slide. Thank you. So as hopefully many of you have heard us say before, in the Division of Health and Wellness here at OSSE, we believe that healthy bodies and minds are the foundation of academic success, and the meal programs that we serve in our schools are critical to making sure those healthy bodies and minds are prepared to learn each day. This is really how we root our work and the why kind of behind the work, and I hope it is for you as well. Next slide, Angela. Thanks. So let's take a little step back to where we've been over the past few years during the public health emergency. As a reminder, since about March 2020, there have been nationwide waivers available, which have enabled us to operate open meal sites throughout the district, providing free meals to all of those 18 and under, where children could get meals at any site, whichever was closest to their home, regardless of what school they were enrolled in. Those nationwide waivers are expiring at the end of this month. And starting July 1st, we will transition back to what we known as our traditional school meal programs. Though there are revised and limited waivers that are going to be available starting July 1st, and we're going to talk a lot about that today. So where we're going. Even though we're making this transition, and transitions are hard and it'll be different, school meals are just as necessary, if not more necessary, for student success. Again, a student just cannot be prepared to learn in school each day if they don't have the proper nutrition to do so. So school meals, we're not going anywhere. We may look a little different, we may be operating a little differently, but we will still be there for our students. Next slide, Nigel.
Looks like we might be having a little bit of delay. Should be seeing summer meal options for school food authorities.
All right, I see it now. Thank you. I was hoping my pause gave you the hint, but it looks like there might be a delay in the PowerPoint. So I'll still give you my nice long pause there. So I'm going to start off with talking about summer meal options. So when I say summer, what I mean is when the traditional school year is not operating. So these are the options for school food authorities to serve meals over the summer. Many of you are already planning to serve meals through our summer food service program, or otherwise known as SFSP. SFSP allows for open meal sites, providing meals free to all students, and a flexible meal pattern and flexible documentation to make meal service over the summer a little bit easier. Another option is to offer meals through the seamless summer option. Again, many of you are already planning to do this. Similar to the SFSP, it allows for open meal sites, all meals to be served free to students. The difference is that the meal pattern for SSO follows the traditional school year National School Lunch Program meal pattern, and the documentation is consistent with that as well. The last final option for offering meals through the summer is through our traditional school meal programs, which are our school breakfast and lunch program. This is available for those operating academic summer school only. So there has to be an actual academic summer school only. It wouldn't be available if you have camps or other summer programming happening at your school. Similar to the school year, In this option, meals can be provided to enrolled students, and they are free only for those who are eligible for free meals. Otherwise, they are provided at a reduced price or paid and claimed accordingly. This slide really shows us a very high level description of each program and how we can serve meals over the summer. Later in this presentation, we provide some resources where we link to a much more comprehensive version of this, and I'll call that out. So if folks want more detail on each of these options, we surely have that, just reviewing today at a high level. Okay, as the next slide comes up, I know that it talks about promoting meal service. And so no matter what meal option you're all using to serve meals this summer, one of the requirements of a school food authority who operates during the school year is to promote summer meals to your students and to your households. And so we've listed here a couple of the best practices and way to do that. There is a USDA's Find Meals for Kids When Schools Are Closed site, which in the coming weeks, as summer meal sites start to operate, will list summer meal sites across the district. So that link is always really wonderful to share. And we also encourage you to communicate with anything that goes home with students, any of your routine and communications that go home at the end of the school year, to make sure that when students are in school, the access to meals is continued throughout the summer. So please make sure to plan for this and make sure over the coming weeks you're promoting meal services that you are providing or meal services that are provided by others in the district. Okay, so we're going to transition from talking about summer meals into the school year meals, which I know many of you are well underway preparing for the school year as well. All right, we have quite a delay on the slides here, at least that I'm seeing. Are others seeing it?
I think it's a delay on your end. It's switching over fine for me. So I think you can just do your pause and continue, and we can see the slides.
Okay, thanks for letting me know. So we'll talk about transitioning back to, sorry, let me get my place here. Here we are, to school meal programs during the school year. All school food authorities will be making the transition for the 22-23 school year to operating our school meal programs, which is our school breakfast program and national school lunch program. So at a high level, just a reminder what the differences are in how you've been operating for the past couple years. These meal programs can be served on operating school days that include summer school, if that's applicable for you. Meals can be provided to enrolled students only, and meals are free only to those who are eligible. Otherwise, students are the meals served to students who qualify for reduced price meals or paid meals are reimbursed at those rates. In addition to operating the school breakfast and lunch programs, we encourage everyone to apply for the seamless summer option in your school programs, your school meal programs application as an option. And the reason we encourage everyone to do that is because the seamless summer option, or SSO, allows you to serve meals during summer break if you so wish, like we talked about, on breaks of 10 days or more. So for example, if you had a 10 or more day-long winter break or spring break, or for those who operate a continuous year calendar, that could be applicable. But what we do anticipate it being really helpful in is that the seamless summer option can be operated in unanticipated school closures, meaning a day that you don't anticipate school to close, but it does. And it allows you, if you've applied for this option, it allows you to serve and be reimbursed for meals on that day. During those times, it allows for open meal sites and meals to be served and claimed at a free reimbursement rate to students. Alternatively, folks can apply for and operate the summer food service program. This is most traditionally operated during the summer, but it does have some of those options similar to SSO, that it can be operated on 15+ day breaks and in unanticipated school closures as well. Okay, we'll keep going to the next slide, and I know you all will be able to see it, and mine will come up in a minute. So I want to talk through some major implications of these changes, both for you as the school food authority implementing this change, and then for students and what they'll see as a major implication. So starting with school food authorities, as we discussed, meals will only be provided to enrolled students, and that may be different in how you've been operating over the past 2 years. Additionally, the seamless summer option can only be operated in these circumstances: during the summer, in unanticipated school closures, or on 10 or more day breaks. So it can no longer be operated starting July 1st in other circumstances, or how it's being operated this past year, where it's being served on operating school days. Another major implication is that for schools who are not enrolling in the community eligibility provision, or what we lovingly call CEP, they will have to return to collecting and processing free and reduced price meal applications, or otherwise known as farm applications, as well as taking point of service and making sure meals are counted and claimed via either a roster or some sort of method that has a student identifier. So sometimes that's using a student PIN, or for folks who have really fancy technology, sometimes a thumbprint, but meals will have to be accounted for at the point of service using that student identifier. Similarly to how we will be counting meals, meals will have to be claimed as student eligibility rates. So those participating in CEP will claim at their free rate based on their CEP eligibility. Those not participating in CEP will claim meals based on student eligibility of free, reduced price, or paid. Another major implication for school food authorities in the 22-23 school year is that LEAs operating fully virtual learning schools will be required to provide meals for enrolled students. And the reason for this is that we know, and we've learned particularly over the past couple of years, that whether a student is learning in person at their physical school building or at home, they still need that proper nutrition in order to learn each day. So this is new for the 22-23 school year. We encourage these meals to meet federal and local nutrition requirements. Unfortunately, they're not eligible for federal reimbursement, and so we do encourage LEAs to fund them using their UPSFF funding. If folks have questions regarding standing this operation up, our team will be happy to support you in this transition. All right, now major implications for students. Really, while we talked through a lot of different complex implications for school food authorities and how we are going to operate these programs, what the students see is a more limited access to meals. In that, free meals are only going to be provided to those who are eligible, and they can only get meals from the school in which they are enrolled. And so because there's this more limited meal access for students, it's even more important that we plan for increased access in every way we can to ensure students get the proper nutrition they need to learn each school each day. So how are we going to make sure they have access? Well, we're probably going to take advantage of some of the waivers that are in place starting July 1st. So these are brand new waivers. They are similar to what we've seen before, but are going to be a little bit different in this coming year. And the difference is that these waivers allow us to provide grab and go meals, including multiple days worth of meals and parent pickup, when congregate meal service is limited by COVID-19. So while over the past 2 years, we were allowed to do this at any time, moving forward, we will only be allowed to do this, again, when meal service is limited by COVID-19. So the waivers allow for the things that we've become familiar with over the past few years, including non-congregate meal service, meaning students can take meals home and consume them at home. It allows for parent and guardian meal pickup. It allows for serving outside of the allowable meal service times. So for example, traditionally we serve lunch between 10 and 2, but in these circumstances, we could serve breakfast and lunch together as a grab and go at 9 in the morning, and someone could take it home and consume it later. It also allows For those who have to operate offer versus serve, to operate serve when in these circumstances. That only applies to NSLP. And it allows for meals to be served at school sites during unanticipated school closures and allows the waivers 1 through 3 to be applied in those instances of unanticipated school closures when it is a closure due to COVID-19. So we know that this is a bit confusing, and we tried to, we're going to walk through some examples of when and how these waivers could be utilized as we move into the summer and the school year. So reimbursable meal examples. Reimbursable meals could be served if a student is in quarantine due to COVID-19, or if an entire class is quarantined due to COVID-19. Those would be instances when congregate meal service was limited by the COVID-19 pandemic, and therefore utilization of the waivers could be used to serve reimbursable meals. Some examples of when meals would not be reimbursable is if a student is absent for a non-COVID-19 related reason. So if a student is absent for another reason, they would not be able to take that grab and go meal home. That would not be a reimbursable meal. I heard myself just say that. I'm just going to rephrase for a minute. You are all able to serve meals to those students. Let me just clarify. Those meals are just not reimbursable federally. So they cannot be included in your claim for reimbursement. Another example of something these waivers don't provide for is in unanticipated school closures that aren't related to COVID-19. So for example, if there's a water main break and the school closes for a day, the waivers don't allow us to do all of the grab and go meal service that have become accustomed to because of something unrelated to COVID-19. So here's even a further breakdown of how to serve meals in different scenarios, applying different use of the programs and different use of the waivers. So in scenario 1, on a school operating day, a student's absent or is learning virtually due to COVID-19, or the entire school transitions to virtual learning due to COVID-19. In this instance, we can provide grab and go meals served through our traditional school meal programs and the use of waivers. In the next scenario, where a school closes due to COVID-19, but this is a closure, meaning there's no instruction. So the difference between scenario 1 and 2 is in 1, there is virtual instruction. In 2, there is no instruction. We are still able to provide meals. They can be served via the grab and go methods that we talked about, but a school will have had to apply for and be approved for the Seamless Summer Option, SSO, and the waivers. And that's really why we encourage folks to continue applying for SSO. And then in our third scenario, if a school closes due to a non-COVID related reason, meals can be provided. The difference is that the waivers are not applicable in this instance. So meals could be provided at a school. A student could come, eat meal during the normal meal time at school, and then return home. And we know that scenario isn't 100 as flexible as we'd like it to be, but it does provide access in a time of need. And I'll give you an example of when that happened many years ago, when I know DC got a really heavy snow and schools were unanticipatedly closed for a number of days. Closing for so many days in a row was really impactful for students who rely on school meals. And some schools were able to serve those meals. So even though school was closed, after 1 or 2 days at home, students were able to come, eat breakfast, eat lunch, and go home. So that would be an example that it is still really useful to apply for the Seamless Summer Option, provide the benefit of meals to students, even though we may not have the waiver flexibility there. Okay, so hopefully I've described the operational waivers that we have available to us this school year. I'm going to transition a bit to discuss the administrative waivers. The first is in regards to our local wellness policy. For those that extended their triennial assessment in the previous 2 years, those folks will be able to extend it further to June 30th, 2023 if you wish. And for those that are eligible for this waiver, an OSSI team member will reach out to you directly for you to elect it if you so choose to do so. The next administrative waiver is in reference to contracts with food service management companies. If folks are in contracts that would expire this school year, meaning you'd have to go out for a new solicitation for the coming school year, you do have the option now to extend it into one more school year. I know this is late to have that option, and folks maybe already have started their procurement processes, but it is available now if it's helpful for folks. The third waiver here is for those who charge students for meals if they don't qualify for eligible free meals. Traditionally, there is a requirement in how much a meal price would have to be raised each year. That has been waived, so SFAs do not have to raise their lunch prices in the 22-23 school year, allowing for some time to transition back to these traditional programs. And lastly, schools that operated SSO in the 21-22 school year may use student eligibility from 2019-20, which is the last you may have collected it, the last time you may have collected it, for the first 30 days of the 22-23 school year to determine student eligibility. I'm just going to flag that we have a summer series session coming up in the next couple of weeks that will dive deep into student eligibility, including direct certification and free and reduced price meal applications. And so we will go over this carryover waiver in even more depth in that summer series session. All right, I know I've been talking a lot, just a few more things to go over before we open it up for Q&A. So now that we have all this information, we have some waivers to utilize into the next school year. We really encourage all of our SFAs to plan for continued meal access, and here are some steps we are offering to do so. The first is to determine a plan for how you will provide summer meals and or promote summer meals to the students in your school. Second, establish how students will receive the necessary nutrition, the meals they need in each of the following circumstances for next school year: when they're going to be in person, if circumstances of learning virtually occur, over potential school breaks, and in circumstances of unanticipated school closures. Each of these would require completing and submitting a waiver request form with your school meals application, so we encourage you to do so, and more detail on that will be released in the coming weeks. Number 4 is we encourage everyone to explore opportunities to continue providing meals free to students as they have been for the past 2 years. Many folks have already elected the community eligibility provision. Thank you for doing so. If you haven't, you have until June 15th to elect participation in CEP. For those that are not eligible for CEP, you do have the option to not charge students if fiscally you can do that, and we encourage you to consider that. Lastly, once you've developed this plan and you know how you're going to provide meals in all these circumstances, we encourage you to communicate and promote these meal services to your students and to your household so they are aware of it and take full advantage. An example of what this planning could look like is our little made-up charter school here of Eleanor Holmes Norton. Is for summer, they're going to provide meals through the SFSP. In the school year, they're going to provide breakfast, lunch, and after-school snack through our traditional meal programs. They also have an alternate meal plan prepared to turn on if COVID-19 limits meal service. So they're ready to turn on grab-and-go meals if needed. Similarly, they're ready to turn on grab-and-go meals if there are unanticipated school closures. All of these plans will ensure continued access to meals in various circumstances. They have completed and submitted their waiver request form along with their school meals application. They're providing free meals through the community eligibility provision, and they're communicating and promoting their meal programs to students and households routinely, including seasonal updates as reminders. Whew, okay, that was a lot of information. And before we get to some questions and the answers, I just really wanted to thank all of you as leaders and partners in this work. We have been successful over the prior 2 years during the pandemic because of your commitment to school meals, knowing that they are critical to health and academic success. And we're so glad to continue this work with you. I will hand over the mic to Alex Dobbs, who's going to help facilitate our Q&A for today.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Liz. That was a lot of information. I don't see any questions that came into the chat yet, but we did have a question before on PEBT. Can you give us an update on PEBT for this upcoming school year?
I sure can. The District of Columbia has not applied for PEBT for fiscal year 22, which is the fiscal year we're currently in. The Department of Human Services, DHS, leads the PEBT program. I know they're in deliberation as to whether an application will be submitted that would allow for some PEBT benefits in fiscal year 22. From what I understand of PEBT in this fiscal year, it is different in the past where folks may remember in the past that students and households that were eligible received PEBT for operating school days. In this school year, one of the reasons that DHS did not apply for the district is because a student would have to be absent due to COVID-19 to be eligible. And that's a very limiting factor. I know there's some new information about potential summer PEBT, and that's what DHS is deliberating to see if the District of Columbia will submit an application. So it was a very long-winded answer, but I hope it was helpful.
Yes, and then a follow-up to that one. Is it possible for OSSI or DHS to send out a communication to parents? DCPS receives many calls because parents believe they administer their program. And then the calls are now picking up as parents ask about summer PEBT.
Thanks for that question, Brittany. We'll definitely take that back for consideration and see how we can support.
Okay, we have an update on the vendors list. I think that this is related to procuring for school meals. And so I can give an update there. I know Lizette is working on it, and she believes she should have this list finalized by the end of this week. And then we can send that out to the folks that need it.
And while folks are potentially thinking of questions and putting them in the chat, I'll also put out a prompt. I'd love to hear from any school food authority who has done some planning for the 22-23 school year and wants to share how they are planning to continue meal access, how they are planning to navigate some of these changes. If anyone's underway and is ready to kind of come off mute and share, I'd encourage you to, why don't you raise your hand first, and we can call on people since we do have some time allocated for the Q&A here.
All right, and then while people are thinking, we do have some more questions coming in, so I will continue on with those. First one, when will the waiver application form become available?
Great question. I believe it should be available in the next 2 weeks, if not sooner. We will be releasing our entire school meal programs application, and inclusive in that will be the waiver form to request waivers.
Yep. And it will be the same process as last year, a bit simpler of a form, and it will be uploaded with your school meals application. The next question we have is, can you help us understand how we should structure providing meals for 100% virtual students?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, this is a little bit of new territory, so I think it's undetermined exactly how it needs to be structured. What I will say is that meals need to be available. And so there needs to be a process in place to ensure that if a virtual student wants to come get meals at a school, they are able to do so. This could look like that they are learning virtually each day and they come twice a week to pick up multi-day meal packs of 2 or 3 days worth of meals. That's one option. It could look like that they come every day and receive breakfast and lunch at school. I think there's a lot of flexibility here, and that we can help provide more targeted TA as you plan for next school year.
Thank you. Can you repeat or restate what you said about the local wellness policy extension waiver?
Sure can. So the local wellness policies require a triennial assessment, meaning once every 3 years, SFAs need to assess their local wellness policy. That assessment was due, if I'm getting these dates right, it was due June 30th, 2021. And there were 2 waivers that already went into place, allowing folks to extend it, or it might have been due June 30th, 2020. Folks extended it to 21 and then 22. This is allowing the extension to 23. That said, this extension is only eligible for those who already extended it. So I see that Marie is in the chat now confirming I got my year right for 2020. I believe Marie will be reaching out to SFAs who are eligible to take advantage of this waiver and ask for them to accept the waiver accordingly.
Yes, thank you, Liz. I'm also going to send messages to LEAs that are not eligible that do have to complete it by this June 30th, 2022. And I'll be hosting a training going over all of the local wellness policy, but also some new resources that are available to help assist anyone that does want to complete the triennial assessment, because it makes it a little bit easier with new resources that we have. Thanks, Liz.
Thanks, Marie.
I don't see any new questions. Let me just make sure I didn't miss anything. I don't think I did. Nope.
Quiet bunch today. Believe me, we had a lot of questions for USDA. So if folks don't have questions now, also we encourage you to use our traditional methods of how we communicate. You can reach out to your program specialist. You can sign up for office hours. So if questions come to you as you're deeper in your planning for the summer and school year, you can always reach out at that time. All right, so we've included some resources for you. Hopefully you all received our special edition of Beyond the Tray, which detailed each of these waivers, excuse me, and how they apply to the upcoming summer and next school year. USDA also has some valuable resources on this topic. As I mentioned before, there's a comparison chart of each of the programs, SFSP, NSLP, and SSO, that's pretty robust and helpful. I reference it often. If you haven't already, please register for our annual training, which will be this summer. Excuse me. In addition to our main session, we will accompany the main session by a summer series. 2 of the summer series sessions I've highlighted here because they're particularly applicable to the topic today. The first will be on June 15th, and it will dive deep into student eligibility, including direct certification and farm applications. The invitation to that should be coming out shortly. And there will also be a summer series on community food resources. So as you are planning those communications out to your students, you'll be able to learn about what other community food resources you can point them to, or how to make sure you have community food resources in line with your school offerings. As I mentioned before, we have monthly office hours. Please, we encourage you to sign up. That is a time you can get our undivided attention. And we often make sure, depending on what you've requested, we discuss in the sign up, that we have representation from all program teams across OSSE, so you can have all of us at one time. And just thank you to all again for your continued efforts. I hope everyone enjoys the end of the school year and all of the celebrations, and we will see you often again this summer. Bye-bye.